It's better to budget for what you can control, which is money in the door, than what you can't control or factor for, which is I have no idea when a claim's going to happen.
So Rob, we've had you on a few times now. There's a lot of hot topics, specifically with claims, insurance, contracts, you name it. One particular thing that you brought up in a somewhat fresh case that we just got resolved was scheduled auto with insurance policies. We were in a situation where we had a larger asset-based carrier, lease-on, and it was a legitimate lease-on an owner-operator. But what happened was the policy did not actually cover that leased carrier or that leased driver.
Sure.
What measures could we have taken, if any, to identify that and, potentially avoid the issue that we did run into?
I'll give you what I would call best practices. And what I'm told frequently by my clients is there's no way I can ever do that, which I say that's ridiculous, because generally brokers, when I say brokers, employees broker loads, right? And unless it's just two people, 3 people, 5 people in an office like yours has employees that broker loads, but you also have back office people who do carrier setup, carrier monitoring, that sort of thing. Also, there's websites and whatnot you can use for carrier monitoring. And I say that because when you set up a carrier and have them sign your broker carrier agreement, okay, obviously one of the first things you do before you move a load is get their insurance cert, okay? Well, what I tell my clients is when you get that cert, you need to call the agency who gives it to you. So like, an insurance company could be Great American, but the insurance agent might be Hub International. Call the insurance agency and just double check, is this a scheduled auto or scheduled driver policy? If they say no, then that means every driver, every truck that runs under that MC number is covered, and this is a non-issue. If they say yes, it's a scheduled auto and scheduled driver policy, then you need to say, please provide the schedule. And sometimes they will already have provided that.
To clarify, this would not, if you get a COI from a carrier, an asset-based carrier, that was not something that would be reflected.
Sometimes it is.
Okay.
Sometimes the insurance agency already provides it. At the bottom or on page 2, you'll see remarks, that section. Yep. Sometimes you'll see various VIN numbers and driver names. And if it is a scheduled auto or scheduled driver policy, if the VIN number of the truck that is pulling the tractor or the trailer is not covered, or if the driver in that truck is not covered, then you have no insurance, okay? So the first thing you want to do is call that insurance agency and verify, is this a scheduled auto policy or not? If yes, please provide me with the schedule that lists all VINs covered and all drivers covered. Okay? If they say no, then you're good. You don't have to worry about which driver there is and which isn't, because frankly, the biggest 3 reasons I get denials and claims are temperature, which insurance will say, and I mean denial from insurance. Insurance will say you don't have a reefer breakdown. 2, scheduled auto or scheduled driver. And 3, non-cooperation, which will never be able to help, right? But temperature, just like scheduled auto, I'll tell you what I think you should do on that. But just like scheduled auto, what I'm going to say is what I think you should do. Again, so call the insurance agency, find out if it's a scheduled policy, and if so, get the schedule to determine who's covered. And I would recommend that your carrier monitoring company or personnel do that monthly. If you can't do it monthly, quarterly. If you can't do it quarterly, biannually. If you can't do it biannually, annually.
Audit.
Call the insurance agent. Get the schedule. Because, for instance, like the claim we had, maybe that guy was leased on a week after you first set up with his carrier. So we need to know in real time who's getting added and taken off the policy. So as often as you can update the schedule, you're going to know what trucks are covered and which drivers are covered, okay? And so if you have a scheduled auto policy, so that's something that I think can be done. Some of my clients tell me it can't, but I think it could be, because that is not something that needs to be done like an employee on the ground floor, boots on the ground. This truck's, I have this company that needs to ship something. I need to put a driver on it right now, right? And they say, I don't have time to do that stuff. well, you have people underneath you that could cover loads, but if you don't have time, I don't know. I don't work in your industry brokering loads. But monitoring the insurance policy can be done in real time, in my opinion, by someone who doesn't broker loads. So when you have the schedule and the insurance cert, if you book, let's go back to our big wave situation. If you book big wave to move a load, when they get there, what I would love to see my clients do is, so VIN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and John Doe are covered by this policy. Dispatcher, can you read me the VIN on that truck and the MC on the side of that truck, and what's the driver's name? Okay, good, they're covered. Off you go. That way you know that the VIN of the trailer, the driver there, and are covered. And by the way, that truck is John Doe. So therefore, it's verified. You don't, some people say, well, the dispatcher's never going to do that. Someone on the loading dock's never going to do that. Okay, if that's the case, you tried. But maybe some will. And if you catch 10%, 20%, 50%, it's better than no percent. So that's something I think that can help with scheduled auto. Other than that, I don't really know what you can do, because you're never going to know who's present, who's not. So dovetailing from that, the other thing that happens to me frequently is, 34 continuous is the temperature, right? Well, it gets there and we find out by the reefer download that it was on start stop or it was on cycle. Same thing as that one. How difficult would it be to call the dispatcher or the loading dock and say, hey, this needs to be 34 continuous. Go to the reefer and make sure it's on continuous and at 34 rather than start, stop, or cycle. Picture, good, in my file. I know it's good. Maybe it changes. Maybe it runs out of gas. Maybe the driver turns it off. I don't know. But at least at dispatch, it was set right. I think that's going to help some claims.
If you have that verification with driver, or, let's say you're using text verification, pictures, you name it, would that hold up against an insurance company with a temp issue?
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes later on they change it, on the temp issue. So if it's at continuous the whole time and the download shows that, sure. But sometimes they fail to fill up the reefer with gas. It runs out of gas. It goes off. Sometimes they want to save gas. So after they leave, because the dispatcher put it on continuous, they turn it off. Drivers do weird things. Truckers do weird things. Sometimes we know a driver is covered or his truck is covered. Halfway through, he gets out, another driver gets in. Weird things happen in our industry. Things are going to happen, but these are just ways to try to minimize things from happening as best you can.
I think that's extremely helpful. And it's, yes, it is. It adds additional work. It adds more steps. But if those steps eliminate a lot more steps when it comes to a claim or, headaches, financial loss that you're dealing with, I think it's worth it. The question is, whether or not you can, retroactively set up those types of verifications with partners like Highway or, Carrier 411. I know it's not as integrated, but
I think this is something you're going to have to do, people are going to have to do in-house.
Well, there's a lot of partners out there now that have the ELDs connected with the VIN numbers, and it's all housed in a platform. Highway, there's a lot of other providers out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you could make that happen, that would be ideal.
Yeah. So,
and to your point on, people always say, well, if that takes a lot of time, it's going to lose me money or whatnot. Okay, let's say this takes you an extra 5 hours a week. And in those 5 hours, you could have brokered 10 loads at $500 profit a load. Okay. $5,000 times all year, $200,000. You get three $80,000 claims because you didn't do this, which you might get 7. You're in the same spot. It's better to budget for what you can control, which is money in the door, than what you can't control or factor for, which is, I have no idea when a claim's going to happen.
A lot of times the people that are telling you that it's not realistic are the ones that aren't dealing with claims, or it's not hitting their bank accounts. So I'm with you. Compliance and solidifying a lot of these processes are top of mind for us, and some big initiatives in 2025 as we continue to grow and move forward. So, Rob, as always, extremely valuable and insightful. Appreciate you coming on. We'll include your contact information in the episode notes if anyone wants to reach out to you directly. Definitely shoot over your questions, comments, anything that you have, or connect with Rob directly. We'd love to engage with you and answer any outstanding questions you have.
Thank you, Justin.